I am pretty sure everyone has certain pet peeves with regards to modern television, whether it be the inclusion of minority characters in ways that do not make any sense, all in the name of representation, or the constant drove of reboots that nobody asked for. We tend to associate these with bad or mediocre shows, but sometimes even the best shows can't help but fall into a pit or two. For me, one of the biggest pet peeves I have had recently has to do with the handling of victimization of characters by movie makers and writers. I think the best way to show this is by discussing how this issue is handled in two very good shows to have come out in the past year, in One of Us is Lying and Extracurricular. And I guess I should say there will be spoilers ahead for both shows. So, One of Us is Lying, if you have not seen the show, is basically a story about a guy called Simon dying and there being 5 suspects who could have killed him. And this suspect having a secret which could possibly be motive for them killing this character. The particular characters I'm concerned with are actually Nate and Jenny. You see, Nate in this show is one of the prime suspects who could have killed Simon. Nate is known for being a drug dealer, basically, who deals to students in his school, and he had been arrested in previous times for it. So Nate finds himself on probation, and his next try to win is going to jail. So Nate's big secret in One of Us is Lying is the fact that he sold drugs to Simon's best friend, who is Janae, and she overdosed on the drugs. Now in this show, very clearly, Nate is the perpetrator, right? He sells the drugs to Janae, and Janae ODs on the drugs. And so in this situation, Janae is seen as the victim, right? While Nate is seen as the perpetrator. And the show treats him that way throughout. You know, when the police arrest Nate for interrogation, he is treated like a criminal. And it's the same thing that happens when Simon finds out that Nate sold drugs to Janae and she OD'd on the drugs.
What happened to Janae was your fault.
I'm not the one that left my best friend wasted and alone at a party.
No, you're the one who sold her enough pills to kill her.
Simon gets mad at Nate for selling drugs to Janae. Same with every other person who looks down upon Nate because he sold drugs to Janae and shooting on the drugs. Except when the scene is actually eventually shown, it is shown that Nate actually refuses to sell drugs initially to Janae and is even concerned about her ODing on the drugs because she is emotional at the time she buys the drugs.
I want some drugs, please.
I don't think that's a good idea.
Why not?
Because you're wasted.
I'm not.
You should go home.
You should do your job.
And yet Nate is the bad guy. And it's even crazier that Simon gets mad at Nate for selling drugs to Janae when it was the reason she got emotional and went ahead to buy the drugs and overdosed in the first place. And the crazier thing is that Nate was the one who found Janae OD'd and eventually saved her life. But yet, throughout the movie, Nate is treated as this demon while Janae gets to take no responsibility for the fact that she bought the drugs and overdosed in the first place. And I feel like this is something that plays out a lot. It's the theme of the guy who sells the drug is the bad guy, you know, she's just a victim. But okay, you could say this is Hollywood. Hollywood does things like this all the time. So why don't we move over then to one of the best Korean dramas to have come out in the past year, in Extracurricular.
품행이 단정하고 학업 성취도가 높습니다. 사회에 귀감이 되며 모범적인 학생입니다.
이 실장님 수고하세요. 내 꿈은 비싸다.
Extracurricular tells the story of Ojisu, a model student who runs a prostitution protection service in order to save enough money to go to college. Basically, the idea is he runs a protection service for prostitutes where he vets the clients who approach the prostitutes and then provides a sort of bodyguard in case the client turns out to be a psycho. Now, in this show, one of the clients for his prostitution service, which he runs anonymously by the way, is a classmate of his who is Seo Min-hee. Now, Seo Min-hee is underage according to Korean law, and yet she prostitutes herself. And the reason she prostitutes herself turns out to be so stupid. Oh my god. It's like, I don't want to spoil it because like it's that stupid. I feel like you have to learn it by yourself by watching the show because it is a great show by the way. You should definitely watch Extracurricular if you haven't. But Min-hee chooses to go into prostitution for the dumbest reason I've ever heard anyway, and gets herself into trouble, okay? At some point, Min-hee decides to go solo against the mornings of the prostitution protection service and sees a client when she was warned not to. And the client turns out to be a psycho who ends up attacking her and she gets PTSD from it. And because of this, the prostitution service, who is Ojisu and his enforcer, decide not to work with Min-hee anymore. Now obviously Ojisu, like I said, was anonymous, so Min-hee had no idea that Ojisu was the main man behind the situation. Basically, the enforcer particularly took a liking to her as a father figure and warned her multiple times to stop doing the prostitution service, and eventually it was from his advice that Ojisu decided to cut Min-hee off and stop her from doing prostitution anyway. So, Minnie gets herself into trouble with this cycle and ends up getting interrogated or becoming a person of interest to the police for, underage prostitution. Now, in the eyes of the police, she is a victim because she has been used as an underage prostitute and she doesn't get to go to jail. But everybody who's been a customer of ours, obviously, is now a potential target for the police. And one of who is a potential target for the police becomes Ojisu, who runs the Prostitution Protection Service. Obviously, like I said, it was anonymous, so the police were unaware of the fact that Ojisu was the mastermind behind the Prostitution Protection Service. Now, the thing that bugs my mind most when I watch the show is what happens when Minnie finds out that Ojisu was the one behind the Prostitution Protection Service. We probably always thought it was some old man, sitting in his bedroom counting the money and pimping them out. When Minnie finds out that Ojisu is the mastermind behind the protection service who would cut her off and stop her from doing prostitution, which was for her own good, by the way, she gets really mad at him and is ready to go and report him to the police.
내가 삼촌이잖아. 내가 삼촌이라고 말했잖아.
지랄들 하고 있네. 범죄자 새끼들.
And that scene for me is a very crazy scene to me because it boggles the mind. Basically, she gets mad at him and sees him as this terrible person who ruined her life. Which is crazy because Ojisu was not the person who made Minnie a prostitute. Minnie was a prostitute working with a prostitution gang or service, whatever, who happened to be clients to Ojisu's protection service. And yet she blames him for her prostitution or for what she went through, even though the PTSD she got was as a result of her directly disobeying his orders not to meet with the client. Like, that is crazy to me. And even in this situation, just like with the situation with Nate and Janae, Ojisu is the one who ends up saving her from the psychos who kidnapped her when she ignored his warnings. And yet she blames him for everything that happened to her. And not only does she blame him, the police starts chasing Ojisu around, and Minnie's boyfriend also blames Ojisu, and basically because of Minnie, Ojisu gets attacked, right? And it's crazy to me. It's like in both movies, the girls or the ladies are seen as the victims, right? And they don't get to take responsibility for their actions. Jenny doesn't take responsibility for the fact that she chose to buy drugs and chose to OD on the drugs. And Minnie never gets to take responsibility for the fact that she chose to become a prostitute for a very stupid reason, and for the fact that she disobeyed the orders of the protection service to not go and meet that client. And yet she gets to blame everything on Ojisu. And that is crazy to me. And that's something that has bothered me about both these movies, is that in both these movies, the victims don't get to take any responsibility. Now, I understand that generally you do not want to victim blame, and I understand right? You don't want to put blame on the victim because it's not their fault that they became a victim of abuse or whatever. But I think these situations are very different. In both situations, both victims, in quotes, are the same age. They are both underage, just the way they are alleged predators, let's say, in Nate and Ojisu, are both underage. Ojisu and Minnie are the same age. Yet Ojisu is supposedly going to go to jail and Minnie is going to be set free as a victim and sent to therapy. Why? Don't you see how crazy that is? They are both doing illegal things, and yet Ojisu is probably going to get sent to jail. Nate is probably going to get sent to jail. But Minnie, Janae, they are both victims and they both taken care of are probably sent to therapy to get over their issues. One gets more responsibility, gets thrown in jail, and they now get to take no responsibility for their actions. At first, I was really pissed off, particularly watching extracurricular and then seeing the same people over. One of us is lying. It got me really pissed off as to why this was the case in both situations. But then I thought about it. What if these shows are simply a reflection of society? And I think I just find that very interesting because I wonder, if so, what does this actually say about the society at large? Is it right? Does it make any sense that yes, even though we want to protect these victims, that they don't get to take any responsibility for their own actions? Does it have anything to do with the fact that some of them were male while the others were female? Does it make any sense that in both situations, the female characters get protected and their male counterparts who are as well underage get thrown in the gulag? Or is it just a matter of one person is a facilitator and facilitators are worse? Would we have the same reaction if the genders were switched? I, the editor Ethelyn here, and I just thought I'll clarify. I'm not saying I support the actions of Ojisu or Nate in any way, and I'm not saying that Minnie or Janae should get thrown in jail because they also made mistakes, because they are in fact victims. What I'm trying to question is if we can recognize the fact that Minnie and Janae are victims and them being underage plays a part in them being seen as victims instead of criminals, then why are we not doing the same for their counterparts who are same age as them? I'm not saying that both of them being underage means that one person cannot commit a crime against the other, but in this case, none of the two male characters committed a direct crime against both victims, but rather committed crimes in which these victims were just involved, if that makes sense. And so if we are trying to help the victims get past this and move on with their lives. Why aren't we doing the same for these two male characters who found themselves involved in this situation one way or another? Why are we not doing something to help resolve this situation that forced them into selling drugs, that forced Ojisu into creating this protection service for prostitutes? Why aren't we trying to help them pass whatever problems they are, and rather trying to send them to jail instead? Because you see, people like Minnie and Jenny can recover and get over these issues in such a way that it won't affect them further down in life. But people like Ojisu and Nate, who are so close to adulthood that they'll probably get tried as adults anyway, they will have a police record on their files forever, for the rest of their life, which will impact their job prospects, their prospects of getting into school. Basically, for something like this, the entire life will get ruined. So my question is, why are we doing so much to help one group while totally demonizing the other group without actually considering the circumstances that actually put them in that situation in the first place? I think one thing we can all agree on is the fact that nowadays, a lot of humans, I don't know if they lack the ability to, but they lack the willingness to understand nuances when analyzing different situations. And I think that is something that shows up in these movies. And like I said, this doesn't just seem to be a Western thing, because Extracurricular is a show from Korea, which is in East Asia. And yet, both the show from East Asia and the show out of Hollywood contain the same thing: the lack of responsibility taken by the victims in both situations. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments if you agree with me. What are your thoughts on this? Do you think this is a reflection of society? If so, where have you got it wrong? And if you want to see my review of All of Us Are Dead, if you're a fan of K-dramas, click up here. Thank you very much, and catch you next time. Take care.